Hi guys, I'm Philip J. Watt and this is the Redesigning Society series. Now, this week I've run a bit short of time. I don't have the material put together properly enough, ready to go, so I thought I'd just make a quick video, not to leave anybody hanging and just to fill that void, but there's some pretty good stuff that I can talk about. For example, what led to this project and who's been on the project so far. So look, at the end of the day, there is a global awakening happening in two different areas. The first is the philosophical shift, this materialism that has hijacked mainstream science, and almost the mainstream consciousness has been disproven by quantum physics, psychology, and parapsychological studies. And we need to start embracing this new evidence, this new data that's coming out of those fields to really truly understand what our role is within this reality. The second part is basically a lot of what this project is focusing on, and that is the social change that we desperately need. So not just in terms of how we each as an individual contribute to the system, but how from the top down what the policy design should be like to ensure the effective sustainability of not just our environment but our entire global society as well. So the first interview we had was with Helena Norberg Hodge. She talked about localization versus globalization. It was about how local communities based in the true culture of that particular region can really bring about valued interactions and true happiness for the individual, because she witnessed, and the community as a whole, because she witnessed, for example, in Ladakh people, which is in southern Tibet from memory, basically how globalization and the ideologies that come with that, such as materialism and consumerism, how that ripped the heart out of that community, and within 10 years they were suffering in lots of poverty, not just physical poverty in terms of homelessness and slums and whatnot, and unemployment, but also mental and emotional poverty as well. So she really summed up what we need to do on a local level to re-engage people to really help each other and help themselves to become happy, healthy people. It's really simple, and we know we've got epidemics of a ton of dysfunctions, both internal and external dysfunctions that are occurring in our world right now, and this is one simple, effective solution to deal with it on a local scale. It can happen from just the community members themselves, but really it needs to be a council type process where the local government is actually engaged and encourage a new way or an old way of reconnecting and redesigning the way that we interact with each other and our environment. Now, she also did talk about how it's really important to have I guess a global body that to manage the affairs on that mass scale. I mean, we've got nuclear weaponry and all these other type of weaponry that can use for bad, so we do need a global governments. And as we all know, there is an empire or an elite or the corporate cabal or whatever the hell you want to call the Illuminati or secret societies, or there's tons of names for these banksters, gangsters, whatever these people are that are controlling the world right now and have done for many generations. They are looking to create a one world government, a new world order, whatever whatever term you want to use to describe it. Now, there's lots of, I guess, rationale as to why we should do that. But at the end of the day, they've been using deceptive, manipulative, unhealthy, dysfunctional, and downright dirty tactics to achieve this agenda. They want to do it on if they actually want to achieve it, they should be engaging and transparent in that process. So we don't know if they've got the right ideological framework to be able to actually implement such a huge agenda. So what Helena was saying is, instead of a World Trade Organization, for example, we need a World Environmental Organization. And that means just an ethical approach to dealing with the impacts that human activity have on this earth. Because, no matter what we throw at Mother Earth, she's going to survive. She could survive a comet, so I'm sure she could survive what we do to her, but her natural systems won't. There will be an impact on the ecology of Earth, and that includes us, and we won't survive through that process if we keep going down the path we are. So she's looking at it from a bottom-up, top-down approach, recognises the need to have some global bodies, but also really emphasises the approach of organising locally and caring for each other and our environment at that level so that we can really overcome these pretty significant issues that we're faced with. So next was Steve Keen, Professor Steve Keen, who is a economist over in London, Kingston University in London, and he talked about how we've got alternative economic models to deal with the socio-economic disadvantage and the huge assets bubbles that we're dealing with right now. He was the one in 2008 who suggested to Kevin Rudd, the Australian Prime Minister at the time, to do a stimulus package, and that was essentially injecting, I think it was $700-800 into the bank account of every person, and that coupled with the Chinese exports that we had stopped Australia going into recession. Now that was a really, really important strategy back then, and it will be when the current global economic situation does reach another crisis or an even bigger collapse, which if you have a look at the real US data at the moment, as well as all over the world, we are clearly in a severely dangerous economic position. We've got the derivatives bubbles, for example, which for starters, I mean that's between $1 and $2 quadrillion, which is basically this gambling, hedge betting off actual real value, real assets. And if something triggers that bubble bursting, then there goes the majority of the world's wealth. So that is a really huge issue that we've got to deal with. But then you've also got your real estate bubbles, your stocks bubbles, your bonds bubbles. Basically, the world is in a global money bubble, and it's all driven from debt, private debt, government debt. It's a debt-based system. The whole monetary system is an absolute illusion. It's an absolute joke, and it's implemented by this elite crew that I talked about earlier to ensure their longevity and not the true health and expansion of humanity as a whole. So we need to look at what central bank's role is. Or are. Every central bank basically in every country is a privately owned institution, right? And they create money, lend it to the governments pay interest on that money, which we call taxes, and then the 1%, these elites get all that money. Like, what? We're independent governments. Sovereign nations can actually create their own central banks. Like, it's ludicrous the way that we've set up this system, or we've allowed this system to be. So what we need to do is take back our right to create our own money, and that wipes out a big problem in terms of the government deficit that we have each fiscal year. Not only that, he talks about, as I was talking about earlier, that stimulus package. It's called a modern debt jubilee, or a quantitative easing for the people. So there's this policy approach at the moment to deal with this huge issue, a global economic issue. Since 2008, that policy approach is called quantitative easing. Now, quantitative easing is essentially creating money out of thin air, injecting it into the banking finance sectors so that the banks don't cripple, and that feeds the economy, so they say. But that's just a Wall Street economy. The Main Street, the real economy, has continued to suffer. We've got huge labour force participation issues. So less people are contributing to the economy. So the unemployment is going down, but it's just the figures are doctored. Don't ever believe the official figures of any official organisation. We've also got huge poverty. Poverty is increasing. Many people on food stamps. There are thousands, if not millions, of people homeless around the world in the developing countries, let alone in the underdeveloped countries, I guess, if you want to call it that. We've got huge issues stemming from the economic models that we have in place, and it's just fueling more intergenerational poverty and violence and socio-economic disadvantage on many levels. So we've got alternative solutions. Steve Keen's one of them. There's another one, Bill Mitchell, and whoever else, there's plenty of economists that actually support this model, which is called modern monetary theory, and it taps into the fact that in this fiat-based currency system that we're in, where we just create money out of thin air, that we can actually give the governments the power, a publicly owned central bank, to inject it into the private bank accounts of people through that modern debt jubilee or quantitative easing to the people. That'll reduce private debt burdens, stimulate the real economy, and we might actually deal with this huge problem that we're in. The whole point is that there are alternative solutions, models already developed with robust mathematics. I mean, Steve has talked about working with some physicists and some mathematicians that know their stuff. They know, they've calculated that neoclassical mathematics is fundamentally flawed. This stuff's been debunked, and we use it on a widespread scale. Why? Because the mainstream media continues to maintain the status quo, and as we know, the mainstream media is corporate banking owned or elite owned. 6 corporations, for example, in America own 90% of the media, and that includes books, TV, newspapers, magazines. I'm not sure about if websites fit into that, but a huge amount of a huge majority of the media, the mechanisms or the mediums for us to get our information is owned by a few simple people sitting around a table going, what are we going to feed the world today? How are we going to manipulate the public opinion today to suit our needs? So we can't trust the mainstream media. That's bloody clear. It's been proven over and over again that they're incorrect or completely deceptive in the way that they deliver information. So we have to. That's why so many people are waking up and going to the alternative media channels. There is tons of independent websites online that will give you exactly what you need to hear to understand the real pictures of life. Now, there are some issues there as well. Obviously, you need to sift through the propaganda and the lies and manipulation and all the craziness, insanity in every medium that we research in. So that's not just mainstream channels, but alternative channels as well. But the reality is that you will not get the big picture, the full picture about life in all this economics, philosophy, science, I guess the politics, all those areas that are so important in how that we organise as a global society through the mainstream media. So we need to go elsewhere. That permeates throughout this project the entire time. Any mainstream narrative that you know is either incomplete or inaccurate. That has to be cemented in. So any type of superficial noise debate that occurs in the mainstream media is off target. It's off target. There's a whole array of people waking up and disengaging from these narratives, and you should be part of it if you haven't already. It's a bit challenging once you get out of that system. You realise how much you've been lied to, and it's a bit tough to handle. There's no doubt. You're like, wow, they got me, but it's better be aligned to the truth than not. Hey, so that should be one of the primary focuses if you haven't already done so. Now, obviously, it's important to still tap into some of these, to what's happening in the world, and you can still watch the mainstream media to get some of that information, because it does have some truth woven in throughout it. But at the end of the day, we have to be discerning with that information. We can't uncritically accept it into our, ammunition of information and understanding that we have about what it means to be human right now at the start of the 21st century, which, to be straightforward, is a bloody blessing. It's an amazing opportunity, huge pinnacle of human exploration at this time, at this time in our human history. You should be feeling bloody grateful to be here, because it's just a ridiculously magical even moment to exist. So it's not all bad, but there's lots of goods. But we really need to focus on the bads, to transcend them and start realigning these social systems back into what is truly harmonious and healthy for not just us on an individual level, but as a united global culture called humanity as well. Now, so economics, we need to figure this out. We've got the answers. Politicians, community leaders, anybody who has some sort of power needs to start investigating this seriously, because when this next crisis hits, which could be pretty big, there are options to respond to it to mitigate the severity of the damage of that collapse. Okay, Steve Keen, Bill Mitchell, a huge array of alternative economists have the answers. So seriously, take them seriously and investigate what they've got to say. Utilize their wisdom, their knowledge. They know what they're talking about. So it's highly important, given the critical point that we are right now in the global economy. So that's something that needs to be really fundamentally and basically prioritised right now. Now, science, I touched on this earlier, it's now a dogmatic institution. Science has been hijacked by the philosophy of materialism. Now, materialism is a metaphysics on life. It's an attempt to explain the core root of existence, and it's based in no actual fact whatsoever. It's an unproven belief. It's a faith. It's a faith called scientism. So millions of people around the world who believe themselves to be rational people who want to investigate the truth of reality, not through religion, and who generally despise religion and some of the blind faith that people can put in religion, have actually done the same in the scientific field themselves. It's hilarious. It's like highly ironic. The problem is that it's not that bloody funny, because these people who have can maintain this charade called materialism have actually contributed to some pretty deeply problematic impacts on our value systems. For example, materialism or individualism or consumerism, they're all about, what we are independent of nature and the outside world and each other. Now, that has caused some massive impacts on how we treat each other, like the respect for each other, our love, compassion, empathy, all those things, as well as the environment itself. Now, we know we're absolutely smashing, giving Mother Nature a pumping. It's embarrassing. If you actually go and look into the damage, the destruction that we have caused our natural systems, you'd be really, really shocked. It's not the whole truth is not easy to capture, or you need to actually go through many hours of investigation to really capture what's going on our planet. Now, but if we looked at what the true science is saying now, which is quantum physics, as well as psychology and parapsychology, and the latter is considered a pseudoscience, but a pseudoscience it's only considered a pseudoscience by the orthodoxy, who believe that data doesn't fit into their model called materialism. Now, they're right. It doesn't. The data that parapsychological studies are unearthing doesn't fit into the materialist paradigm, because what they're discovering or rediscovering is that the mind can impact and connect with the external realm. Now, if we're independent, separated, pieces of meat, then how could we be connecting with what's around us? And quantum physics provides an answer as to how that happens. And what it does is it forces a philosophical shift, which says that consciousness, or the mind, is fundamental, and it's also a co-creator in an interconnected reality. So the zero-point energy field is the basis, or the quantum field of possibilities is the basis of our reality, where things are in their potential of matter, or a potential of experience. And what consciousness does is actually realize that potential. It creates the experience out of the potential of experience. And so we know that instead of the brain, and neuroscience is way off track too, Neuroscience says that because we tamper with the brain, it changes our experience of consciousness in certain ways. It must mean, right, that the brain creates consciousness. But as we all should know, correlation does not imply causation. So what instead of the brain being an electricity generator, like a creator of consciousness, it could actually just be a filter or a tuner of consciousness. So if consciousness is actually fundamental awareness, not self-awareness, not like I'm aware that I'm a human being called Phil, just awareness itself, the capacity to be aware, is the actual fabric of the universe. And what our brains do is that tune into it like a TV or a radio signal would tune into different frequencies of electromagnetic on the electromagnetic spectrum. The brain also tunes into different frequencies of consciousness. So that's why if we tamper with our brain, including our heart brain, 40,000 neurons, or a tummy brain, 100 million neurons, which is all through the digestive tracts. And in fact, the big brain and the tummy brain used to be the one brain in the fetus, and at some point it separates into the two brains, and I'm sure they're still connected at some point. So we've got multiple brains through the body. If you don't know this already, this is science. And so all of these brains, our body brain completely connects to filter or tune into a frequency of consciousness. So of course, if we tamper with its neurology, that we're going to experience consciousness in a different way. All right, that's fair enough. But that doesn't mean that we're creating consciousness. It could be that we're just actually receiving it. We're like an antenna for consciousness. So. And that's where the evidence is leading. Have a look at some of the new quantum physical experiments around entanglement and the wave particle duality and the collapse or into particles, and how the observer and the mechanism or the measurement device has a role that it plays in bringing that particle into reality. So that's where we're moving. Huge philosophical shift, and science needs to, the scientific establishment and how it's presented, it's represented into the public, into the mainstream consciousness, needs to accept that it's evolving its philosophy or its metaphysics on life. This is where we're at. This is where we're going. It's not just like laymen that believe this stuff. It's a huge amount of scientists, some of which admit it publicly, others which don't. And Rupert Sheldrake, in his interview, explained as to why scientists won't admit it publicly, because it will impact their careers. And that's how much science has become an institution, that if you can't even try and align your beliefs around life, if you're a scientist, to the new evidence, the new paradigms, the new ways of thinking that are emerging in the world, then there's a fundamental problem with the way the system is designed. Okay, now we know it. How hard would it be? How hard would it be to spend your whole life being like a leader in your field, a scientific leader, and you're a materialist, and you're getting told that, well, your whole philosophy on life is wrong? I mean, they're going to defend that position vehemently. So it's like, it's quite hilarious, like, to spend your whole life thinking something is correct and you're meant to be an expert in the field, and it turns out to be one big giant lie. You know, I feel a bit sorry for them, I guess. But hey, align to the truth. There's no other way to go forward. Deal with it. Deal with the fact that you got it wrong for that long. Don't worry, we've all been brainwashed. We are all brainwashed. Welcome to the zombie apocalypse. We're all part of this. A matrix is part of this illusion, and we're trying to uncover truth by truth as we go along and evolve as this global collective consciousness happening. It's always happened, but it's becoming conscious. This collective consciousness is becoming conscious of itself in so many ways. So that was a great interview with Rupert. Now, then I talked to Geoff Lawton. Geoff is an icon in the field of permaculture, and permaculture really does capture so much of what this change, this fundamental change, this behavioural change, the action change, the stuff that we actually have to do as on a individual and local level, but also as a global level. Because what permaculture is, it's an ethics. It starts with ethics. So if we don't start with ethics, then we could go anywhere with it. Doesn't matter how we could go. So there's no limits to how we should operate. And because it starts with ethics, it's about fulfilling all the needs of the individual, the community, and the environment in that ethical, moral way. Okay, so basically permaculture is providing all your fibre, your fuel, your other materials such as food, anything that you need in a way that's going to be environmentally and I guess communally responsible. So leave no toxic trace, hurt no one, do the right thing for yourself, do the right thing for the environment, and transcend the problematic systems that we have in place, which overconsume and create so much waste and need never-ending growth and these ridiculous, insane approaches that we've got to living in the world right now. The funny thing is, right, all this consumerism and materialism has just brought unhappiness and ill health anyway. People aren't that happy, right? And I'll tell you this, the majority of people aren't content. They haven't found true inner peace in life. They're always reacting, emotional reaction. What can I be angry at today? What can I despise? What can I condemn in life? It happens all the time. Let's get pissed off about anything, you know? But once you, sophisticate yourself. Sophisticate your philosophies, your emotions, your behaviours, lead with the heart. Think about love. Love's a beautiful way of doing it. Radiate love, do that. You start to, these things like compassion and empathy and just embracing life and embracing people, no matter how poorly behaved they are, becomes very, very easy. So, but there's a whole, array of problems that are causing so much suffering for the individuals and our collective, and they are being driven and amplified by these materialistic and individualistic. So I'm the most important, not a collectivist type approach to life, but I need to fulfill my needs. That individualistic philosophy that permeates these consumerist and materialistic frameworks has caused so much suffering. So the people are out there trying to fulfill their needs or fulfill their wants. Needs and wants. Needs are what we should be focusing on. Figure out your needs, then align your wants to your needs. Then you're fulfilling what is right for you and also everybody else, because your needs always include caring for others. That's always a need, because without the way that we have evolved as a social structure over the millennia, we wouldn't have been able to evolve to this level technologically. In our civilization, how we've been able to organise together has created where we are today. So we have to look after each other. Really, really simple. So permaculture deals with a lot of these issues inherently in what it actually is, what it's made of. And really it's just creating, making sure you got your own medicine through natural medicines, not this pharmaceutical bullshit that has taken over the world and absolutely crushed the health, the mental health and the physical health of so many people. There's been a lot of value that's come out of mechanistic medicine. There's no doubt surgeries and antibiotics and several other things, painkillers and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's been an absolute tragedy for our health, because it's just a band-aid solution. It doesn't actually go to the core root of the issue. Mechanistic medicine is not the be-all and end-all of medicine. Let me tell you that right now. That's why alternative medicines are working on so many different levels, and that's why shamans have been able to heal energetically and even spiritually for many, thousands of years. So we need to transcend this mechanistic medicine paradigm, because there's stuff to include, but there's a whole bigger way of dealing with it. But anyway, there's a lot of natural plants can do that job. You know, we could create so much good health just by preventing bad health, just by eating right, eating a good nutritious diet, with a whole field, like massive, variations in the food. We could do that just by setting up a permaculture system and having a really good herb garden, vegetable gardens, fruit orchards, and then also sort of your wild type stuff as well, and not just on your own in your own backyard or on your own property, but also communally in gardens and shit. Like we could have like parks dedicated, half of the park or a quarter of a park dedicated to growing food. Everyone meets together in their community and helps out. They're doing it in towns around the world right now. It's already happening. This stuff is already happening. It's just that for the majority of us, it isn't, especially in big city type settings. So the aim of permaculture is to really ensure that it looks after the environment too. So there's no residual impacts. It actually helps just diversify the biology and the fauna and the flora of the area, and create a real abundance of life that works together. So, and one of the other things with permaculture is it helps to it uses it's a design science, so it uses natural wisdom in a way that benefits what you're trying to create. So essentially, it's like man and nature. Obviously, we're nature, but our creativity and nature coming into balance, coming into union. And so nature does it best, but we can do it better to suit what our actual needs are. So, for example, you put certain plants with other plants, and they'll help each other to grow and to fix the soil. And there's tons of different variations of how plants and animals can work with each other. And we just need to utilise that understanding, that wisdom, in a sense that is beneficial to everyone involved. Okay, so then we moved on to Dean Radin, and he's a parapsychologist that works at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and he's an amazing man. Realistically, all he's doing is he's a scientist who really wants to work out what's going on in the lab when they test these psychic or psi experiences. So all the experiments are set up under robust conditions. You cannot fault them. There is no scientifically justified reason as to why this isn't proper science. It's the way that the experiments, it can't be some other variable that isn't accounted for. They've accounted for all the variables. And the data shows clearly that there is a correlation. There is something happening. There is a capacity for the human mind to do some extraordinary things. Now, we've grown up in a world where we're told this is crap, right? So since a baby, we've been wiring ourselves neurologically to believe that's not we're not capable of this stuff. So we're also been designing our concepts in our minds in a way that says this isn't real, this isn't possible. So just imagine we grew up in a tribal community where telepathy was a natural or an ordinary ability, and people were like, yeah, no, we do telepathy all the time. Actually, I'm speaking to you right now telepathically. Didn't you realise that? And you'd be like, yeah, no, that's of course. If we actually grew up in a community setting like that, where these sorts of extraordinary abilities of the mind were considered just a very natural thing, and we know that animals can do this stuff. They've got huge variations in senses. They can sense, sharks sensing blood from a mile away, and animals disappearing when tsunamis come, and there's a huge array. The way that snakes use vibration and all the smells and stuff and whatnot. They're just the sensory apparatus that are really looking at things through, I guess, maybe the electromagnetic spectrum or something like that. But the difference with these sorts of experiments is that people are isolated in big steel boxes. So there's no signal. There's no signal that we know of that can transcend it. It has to go within the quantum realm, or it's basically beyond classical space-time, sort of mathematics, that spectrum. So um, how this information is being transferred from one person to another when they're isolated, and there's no signal that can be can occur through the conventional means, we're still to figure out, and that's the amazing part of it. There's a whole area of science that we've got no idea what's going on. Something's happening, and it shows some amazing capacity of humans. So once we start opening up science and the mainstream mindset to these sorts of abilities and possibilities, we can start designing our neurology and our concepts and our brain to be able to actually experience these on a more consistent basis. So we're evolving. Humanity's evolving. The way that we can actually consciously evolve ourselves. We can actually tap into this stuff, and over a few short generations, really change what powers that we do have, so or at least amplify those powers. So it's really exciting. All the guests have been absolutely, fantastic to talk to. This stuff I've been studying for, quite a while. This is why I'm pooling these people together to really help others to understand how beautiful and majestic life is outside of this mainstream story that we've been brainwashed with. And so but even after all my research into it, the way that they articulate this information, the way that they ooze intelligence, they ooze brilliance, and I've really been inspired myself through that process as well. So a big shout out to all the guests so far. We've got a few more amazing guests already lined up and ready to go. I'll have to put that material together as soon as I make the time. But yeah, it's been this project is a evolving process. So hopefully I'll be able to secure some more important figures or expert figures in these fields to help this project grow, and to keep people engaged from not just those circles that already know about this stuff, but also what you consider the mainstream mindset as well. So thanks for all of you guys who have been supporting me and giving me feedback so far along this journey. I love to hear it. Please continue to do so, and we'll see you over the coming weeks. Cheers.